Hello, Fierce Factor. Welcome to this incredible episode with the one and only beautiful and brilliant Yvonne Dellos, the CEO and medical director of the Medical Aesthetic Art Institute. She also is the CEO of the Aesthetic Co., a multi-location medical spa. You probably, unless you've been living under a rock, you know of Yvonne. You've probably seen her work in the stage at many of our industry conferences, and she's also a key thought leader and trainer in our industry. And I'm really excited to have this conversation because one, just being a part of this industry over time and seeing how quickly, aesthetics has grown, in particular on the injectable side. And, given some of the shifts in, that happen in the employment world around the Great Resignation and the inspiration of so many to kind of dip their toe into aesthetics, and many nurses and other providers who are like, I want to get in the game. And there's just a plethora, a big sort of like wave of people learning and wanting to learn and grow. And with that, there's been a big opportunity for the really experienced, the really talented and, well-respected injectors who really know what they're doing to step up and become the teachers and leaders of these newbies, right? And so it's so interesting to me as someone who's running a business academy, I kind of think about like how cool this sort of coaching and developing and mentoring industry is developing. But I have such curiosity. And so I reached out to Yvonne to talk with her about what it really takes to build a legitimate training academy. And I think a lot of women are seeing opportunity now to step up in that space as leaders in their marketplace and become these institutions or these places where others can come and learn from them. And so with that, I want to welcome you, Yvonne. Thank you so much for joining us on the Fierce Factor. And I'm really excited to dive in and explore this topic with you.
Thank you for having me. And it's an honor. And I love sharing my experience. I love sharing my knowledge, and hopefully somebody can pick up what I'm putting down and apply it and rise, right? That's
yes.
the goal.
I love, I think it's on your Instagram. I saw the Medical Aesthetic Art Institute. In the bio, it says, empowered injectors empower injectors. I thought that was beautiful. This says a lot about who you are and your philosophy.
Yeah, it kind of makes me emotional because that is my passion. And I think for those that have tapped into their passion, they know exactly where I'm coming from. I live and breathe this because I love my students so much. It's a privilege to be able to teach another woman a skill to raise her self-confidence and to put bread on the table. And I love sharing that with other women. And I love sharing with my students that it's a privilege as injectors to alter another woman's self-image. That is very, very powerful. And I don't take that lightly at all. That's an honor. And I hope and pray that my students remember that when they have these experiences with these women in their chair, that what you are doing is you're altering her self-image.
Yeah. Well, it's such a beautiful mission that you have, but also a realization, because I think our industry can kind of get a bad rap, right? Like it's all about the external beauty. And what's so interesting, I find this as well, from my perspective too, as a consumer, and also working with women who are in fact in that position to help other women become more confident and empowered in themselves, that the work is actually not just skin deep, like it's soul deep, right? Yeah. So Yvonne, tell me, I'd love for you to just tell the listeners and kind of talk a little bit about, maybe your journey, a little bit of kind of young Yvonne, and then how you obviously became, who you are now. What was your upbringing like, and how did you come to the place of having this mission for the world?
Oh, wow. That's a lot. So I was raised by my mother was single with 6 kids. So I was a latchkey child. I dropped out of school in 9th grade, was pretty much living on the streets. But I had a goal. And I will tell you this, Kaylee, I'm very, very goal driven. And I had a goal of being a cheerleader. That was something I always wanted to do, was be a high school cheerleader. But this ninth grade dropout was never going to be a cheerleader, right?
Oh.
So I had to do all those packets to get caught back up, to get back into school to be a cheerleader. So I made it. I got back into school. I became that cheerleader. And then halfway through the year, I was like, is this all there is? So what I did was I packed my bags and moved to the East Coast, finished high school early. I think I was always this grown up person. And so I wanted a big life for myself. So I moved to the East Coast. I was a nanny on the East Coast as I was going to school. And then life happens, right? And then I find myself, gosh, I was, I think 27 when I went to nursing school. And I went straight from nursing school into grad school because I wanted to do reproductive medicine. So I have my own twins. They were actually 3 embryos, 2 of them split. So I had 2 separate sets of identical twins. So I was Southern Utah's first quad mom. I was
Wow.
pregnant. Yes, I was pregnant the same time Octomom was pregnant. So I didn't dare tell anyone. So yeah, true story. I finished grad or my bachelor's program on bed rest with, so my heart started giving out and I lost the other set of twins. So my second trimester, I went on bed rest. I was in my bachelor's program. So my whole bachelor's class came to my house. We graduated in my backyard. And then I went straight up. The twins were not even, gosh, they were like 7 months old when I went to grad school. So I would fly to Kentucky, for my clinicals, my onboarding and stuff, because I did Frontier Nursing University. And I always wanted to do reproductive medicine because having my twins was like the greatest joy of my life. And I wanted to help other women. So I worked with the godfather of IVF in Las Vegas, loved it. And then things just didn't quite work out how I had planned. And I ended up back up near Park City. And I could not find a job as a nurse practitioner because I had just graduated. And I ended up running trauma. I ran the first aid trauma on Deer Valley Mountain. So a snowmobile would come pick me up. We'd go to the accident, the scene. And that was my job because I couldn't find a job, right? So the only job I found was in aesthetics doing laser hair removal, and they were just rolling out. So this was 2014. I graduated grad school in 2013. January 2014, got into aesthetics. And then in 2015, I opened up my own clinic because I'm like, well, instead of commuting the mountain, I'm going to just build one. And so I did in 2015, and I named it Results, Rezults. I wanted my patients to have results. And then at that time, I also did like concierge mobile, where I would go up to the celebrities in Park City when they would come in for Sundance, and I would see them as well. So that was in 2015. And then I ended up back in Las Vegas. I needed the sunshine. And I thought it'd be easy, just, close business and start somewhere else. No, your patients don't just let you leave like that. So I have been commuting. I was commuting from Las Vegas to Park City like once a month, once every other month for over 6 years, well, since 2016. So what is that, 6, 7 years now? So yeah, we finally just opened our very own full med spa up there, and I've hired my students to come work for us. And so, yeah, so that's our location up there. And then in 2018, the funniest thing, it's just funny how life happens full circle, right? So the doctor I was working with, IVF in Las Vegas, his daughter became a patient of mine, really good friend. She blew up my Las Vegas location. So I had clinic or patients in Las Vegas. And what I did, which I didn't know at the time, so you see like Lululemon do a pop-up store,
Yeah.
they test the market to see if it's going to be profitable, right? Well, what Yvonne was doing, she didn't know, as I was doing pop-up clinics,
Oh.
little satellite offices to see if I could build a clientele and grow my business. So yeah, in 2018, 2016 went back to Vegas. 2018 started the school, and I started the school because my girlfriend of 16 years had moved to Portland, and I went to visit her, and I was like, wouldn't it be great? Now, y'all be very careful, because what you speak, you manifest.
Yeah,
So be very
exactly.
mindful of that. And I said, wouldn't it be great if I could find a traveling job as an injector and I could come out and see you more often? So that literally was in November of 2017. I went back to Las Vegas after leaving Portland, got online, found a job, applied for it, and guess where my first assignment was?
Oh,
It
wow.
was in Portland. So in January of 2018, I worked for a company traveling and training for them. My first assignment was Portland. Met some great students. We are still friends to this day who I've helped build their business. And one of them's actually got her own training program now.
Nice.
And so in 2018, after working for this other company for 6 months, I was on a road trip with my husband, and I said, I've got to do something. I've got to do something about this. This is not right. We can't send injectors into this industry like this. I would have 13 students by myself, no models, maybe one if I were lucky. And I was like, I felt responsible for these providers that did not get quality education and training, that are now going out and trying to wing it. So on that trip with my husband, I wrote the whole business plan. So I came back June 1st, 2018, opened the business, Medical Aesthetic Art Institute. And at that time, true story, I could only Google search 16 training programs in the country.
Wow.
Now I can't even tell you how many there are, which it is amazing. It's growing like nothing I've ever witnessed before.
Right.
So our first class was in August of 2018. We had 8 students. And now I only take 6 max, and that's me and one of my nurses will help teach.
Mhm.
I have a nurse that travels with me everywhere I go. She's my personal assistant, so that she can help with hands-on and help answer medical questions. So yes, last year at Aesthetic Next, we were voted Institute of the Year. That was our students doing, right? We've never put any money into marketing. We went nationwide with word of mouth from our students, and it has been the love of my life. It has been the funnest, the hardest,
Yeah.
the most beautiful experience to see these students. I love watching them succeed. So yeah, and then so we just opened the Heber location, brand new clinic up there. So that's a full service. And then we have our headquarters is in Southern Utah, St. George, where both Monique and I see patients a couple days a week here. But running the school it's a lot of work. I have a director of operations that pretty much manages the 3 businesses that I have, and the 8 streams of revenue that I bring in. But it's kind of, once you have that entrepreneurial mindset, like it doesn't stop. You just keep going. And so yeah, I've met great relationships with other companies and trained for them and speak for them, and it just evolves.
Yeah, it is so interesting to me because I think it was, maybe last year I was talking with Tiffany Hall about prior to Aesthetic Next, and she had reached out to me about coming to give a talk. And I'm like, what's the deal with the Aesthetic Next? Because like it's kind of known as like there's just a lot of injectors there. And she said, here's the thing, Kaylee. She was like, anyone can open up their door and say that they're an aesthetic injector. And so, instead of complaining about it as a problem, why don't we teach them how to do it right? And I will tell you, even clients that I've had are against that philosophy, right? So there's a couple different schools of thought, like, well, the world doesn't need more injectors. And then there's sort of the camp I believe you're in, obviously, right? Which is like, hey, let's train everybody how to do it properly. Let's protect the industry. Let's do it safe with ethics and, et cetera. I'm really interested to hear from you because when you started the Medical Aesthetic Arts Institute, there were 16 training academies in around the globe, right? And now we could probably add zeros to that number, right? And there's different variations of kinds of academies. And I feel like it's just as confusing now as, let's say, it is for a patient to know what makes an injector great and one not so great, right? As it is now an injector looking to advance their skills and not knowing what makes an academy great and not great. And I remember having a conversation with one of our top leadership academy clients who said, Kaylee, I'm telling you, I went to a course, like a weekend course or whatever, to, just learn some advanced skills. I ended up teaching the class, like literally even the instructors didn't have as advanced of, or let's say like, as comfortable with certain techniques as I was, and I was there to learn. And so I just am so curious and interested to hear your perspective, Yvonne, about what it is that makes, like, what legitimizes a training academy.
Yeah. And, really, Kaylee, to answer your question, anyone can. And many of my students are now opening up their own. It's kind of that next thing, right? So you've been injecting, you've built a business, you're doing really well, you feel very confident in your skills, you're getting great results, and you get a lot of people asking you, how did you do it? And so then you start. And really, the feedback that I get, I created my curriculum, like on that road trip. It took me
Right. I was going to say on a napkin. Yeah.
it took me 3 months to build my curriculum, and that's research and putting all that content together. Not everybody wants to do that. And not all training programs do offer a curriculum. A lot of the times they'll just show you what to do. I can tell you when and where to poke and how to poke, but if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then I'm doing a disservice, to or for you. And so I have curriculums that are backed by research on all the training that I offer. I created the medical director course for the state of Utah. We sat down with a Utah DOPL attorney for 3 months and wrote that content. And then I created the very first emergency course and kit for this industry, the aesthetic ER, and trademarked that. And that took 3 years to create with research. And I have in the kit the disc with all the research articles. And as you know, research is always changing, right? So you're never done. Your content is always changing. Your curriculum is always changing. We used to have 11 educators before COVID. And what I will say is I intentionally made the decision with my team that we were going to keep our brand small, but very, very concentrated by eliminating all the trainers except for myself, because I wanted to make certain that they were getting quality training. Because we all have our own ideas of what is, good training. But I have very, very, very high standards, and I'm very particular. You can ask my team. Yeah. I want things done exceptionally well, and I really like working with people that want excellence in their life, and in their everyday, like their business, whatever they want to strive for excellence. And so that's what my program is. I really believe I'm the only program that allows you to take my training twice. I offer unlimited mentoring. You can call me anytime, day or night, and I will answer your question. And I really think that that's how my community was built, because I was there for them. It wasn't my intention to build this big training program. It wasn't my intention to have this big community, but I love them so hard, and they know that. And I give them my full attention when they're with me and in my presence. I want them to leave feeling confident, feeling better about themselves, and knowing that I'm in their back pocket if they need anything, and I'm here for them. And so I have built this great community, and I do community events. I don't charge them. I keep my prices really low and affordable, because you know what, Kaylee, at the end of the day, Medical Aesthetic Art Institute is me. It's my brand. It's my reputation. I might not have a ton of followers on social media, but I have a ton of friends that I've created through my students, I have a student in Florida I'm still mentoring I trained her 4 years ago. We still have regular phone calls, and we've become the best of friends. And that's what I'm all about. That's what my program is about. And that is what I've built just by who I am, right? So that's how Medical Aesthetic Art Institute came about. Is I saw a need, I turned it into an opportunity to serve, and yes, that opportunity has become profitable.
Mhm.
But I always, it's like Oprah says, you have to ask yourself, what are your intentions? I know what my intentions are. I know what leads my company. I know what my vision is. My employees know that.
Mhm.
And that's what we're here for, is we're here to serve and empower women to take on a new skill that gives them the freedom. I literally just bought myself a big giant house last week. I did it all by myself,
Congrats.
and I do that with humble pride, right? That if I can do it, ladies, I paid for half of it in cash. If I can do that, you can too, right?
Mhm.
I came from food stamps. I came from
Mhm.
welfare.
Yeah.
You know?
High school dropout. I mean, you can bounce back too. I
Yeah.
think that's important as well, that you're not defined by your past and you're not defined by the decisions that you've made. You could at any moment in time choose, today I'm going to take a different path. I'm going to be, put myself on a different course, you know. And it's interesting because what came to mind for me is I'm listening to you and you're talking about working with people, what I'm learning about you, right, through our conversations, but like my business coach, she talks about like game knows game. Like you can see in people what their potential is because they're striving for excellence. And that the sort of saying that, show me how you do one thing and I'll tell you how you do everything. Right. And it's sort of that, like, I can see how you're like, as you describe what you do, you see your students so much more holistically, right? And how this aspect of your relationship with them through the training process is a piece of the pie of helping them develop into whole people, and that, so something that's coming to mind as you're talking about like mentoring someone for 4 years, right? And I totally get it because we all change and we continually need mentorship. And what I think is so powerful about the curriculum piece, because I wholeheartedly agree with you. I mean, someone that's like, hey, send me that YouTube video you did on blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it's not about the information. We all have access to information, right? It's about going back, applying it, doing it probably wrong for a minute, figuring out how to do it right, having some complications, right? And like kind of learning and reiterating and polishing up your skills and then coming back, right? So just, one of the core concepts we teach, and we have an entire program and business certification around how to scale your business, right? And one of the key philosophies around scale is really developing a business with assets that will grow on their own independently without needing you, right? And so how do you, like, obviously you mentioned 8 revenue streams, which, I mean, you guys, like, for anyone listening here, I mean, this is impressive. The aesthetic emergency kit, your medical director course that you've created with the state of Utah, you have your academy, your curriculum, you have your med spas, right? I'm like kind of just listing some of these out, right? How does Yvonne Dellos, one woman, running all of this and growing this multi-million dollar empire, right? How does she hold it together? Like, I think inquiring minds want to know. And like, obviously you're beautiful, you're beautiful physically, like that, your beauty, your radiance speaks for itself, but you're a beautiful woman inside as well. And I would just like think somebody with all this going on would just like be a complete shit show, excuse my language, but you're not, at least not by appearance. So we all want to know, what is it?
And I think that's so important to ask. Like, that's a very important piece of the puzzle, because we see social media all day and we're like, whoa, this looks so glamorous. Girls, let me tell you, there's days I want to rip my hair out.
Yeah.
It is not easy. So that friend that I was telling you about in Portland, she's a sonographer. I just helped her start and build her business. She's the first sonographer in the industry to create she's called aesthetic imaging, and she now teaches ultrasound. Because again, I found a need. So she had messaged me last week and she's like, oh my gosh, I never see my kids. My marriage is suffering. How do you do it? There is no such thing as balance. Okay. But what my coach taught me is, Yvonne, just integrate. So when I can, I have my family travel with me. They don't love to travel as much as I do, but I do take them on training trips like to Hawaii or Alaska. So I integrate. I do have the most amazing husband. He's my wife. He runs the family life because we have reversed roles at our house. I'm the one that takes off my clothes and drops them in front of the laundry basket. and he's the one that so he manages the home life. He makes his own money. I make mine. And this is my saying, ladies, he wears his pants and I wear my pants. We have a very, very independent marriage, but it works really well for us. I make my own money and I do what I want with my own money, and he does his, but we definitely co-parent really well together. We're great marriage partners. But I also have a great team. I have a great assistant. And it's, they always say the team you start with isn't always the one you end up with. I've gone through employees, and I mean, it was your podcast about, PTSD with having employees leave. My last, personal assistant that left me, I mean, everybody loved her. I loved her and adored her, and she just up and left. And so it's not always, run rainbows and butterflies. It is very, very difficult to run a business. But what it is that keeps me going is my passion. I know my purpose. I know what is meant for me, and I know what I'm doing. And I'm very blessed and fortunate to be very good at what I do, but it's because I know that that's what I'm meant to be doing. It comes easy for me to empower women and to love women and to believe in them and to see their potential that they don't always see themselves. So yeah, I mean, it's not easy. There's days where some days I'm like, what am I doing? Do I want to keep doing it?
Yeah.
Really. And I alter my schedule and I make adjustments, and I take some time when I feel like my family needs time. And part of buying this house was, we can have a pool, we can have friends that we can have, we have a bigger home now to have more people come to us, so we can do more family friends things, because that's where you have the real quality of life, is those relationships in your life. So, but something's got to give, right?
Yeah. And I love, when you mentioned about the Instagram followers as an example, and I know that's kind of a cliche example, right? But I recorded a podcast just this last week on, chasing the wrong metrics, essentially. And I don't think anybody sets out to intentionally do that, right? Like, everyone's like, we're not like all of a sudden going to worship a gold statue. Like, we just are doing our thing every single day. And we are bombarded with messages that tell us that we're not doing enough. We need to do more. It's time to open a training academy, right? Like, what's next? TikTok, add, go, go, go. And we start to forget and lose focus on, why did I build this? I built this to empower women. I built this to show my family what's possible, so I can be there with my husband and my kids and actually enjoy my friends and, relationships and these things. And we get a little bit off track, and even 1% will take us in complete wrong direction, and I think it's sort of there's two pieces in my mind. One, it's refocusing on what matters, right? Going back to like, this is my passion. I'm going to just, like, if I have to bear crawl on my hands and knees to make it happen, I'm going to. But I think with that said, like, the underbelly of this is sort of, to me, it's a lot of your history. Like, you talk about these adversities that you've gone through. Yesterday, I went to like an early workout, and it was like this intense cardio nonstop. It was 35 minutes of like literal death. And by the end, there were like 2 people standing. Like, there were injuries and, as you could watch. And it was, for me, I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm definitely not the most in shape person in this room. Home, I wanted the last people that are actually doing it, because I'm not going to quit. And I think I learned that, right? Just like I was a college athlete and like you couldn't, like that was just ingrained in you. And I think it's there are tools that you learn along the way. And that's where I see in you this resilience. You sort of have this like fire in you. Like I bet, I mean, watch out. Like if Yvonne decides, nah, I think I'm gonna, yeah, okay, watch out, baby. Like she's on a mission, right? Girl on a mission. So yeah, I think it's part of like tapping into those things. So, right. Like if the adversities that you faced, it doesn't make you somebody who's not capable, but maybe more capable, right? Having employees that leave and you're like, okay, now I got this. Like I can do this again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you learn, and I tell my students this in training, like you will learn the most from the most painful. When you drop a vial of open Botox that just cost you $625 or whatever, that's painful mistake, and you will learn, and I promise you'll never do it again. So it is the painful things that we learn and grow through, and also that forces us to self-reflect. I mean, I did a ton of self-reflecting when my personal assistant left, because I am somebody that really cares deeply about people. And I'm like, when I tried to make it the best job ever, why would this one person want to leave? But at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility to make other people happy. And I'm not responsible for other things in their, my things happening in their personal life. And so, but that's hard. That's hard. That's self-reflecting, to be like, okay, Yvonne, you can own this, but that is not yours. This other stuff is not yours to own. You can show up and do your best and love your hardest. And
yeah. And I think that takes like a strong, a mindset of sufficiency. It's a mindset of I'm enough. If I show up and give, like trusting the process, if I show up and give everything I can, and I am committed to my core values, that's the best we can do.
Yeah.
That's the best we can do, Yvonne, I have a question for you. How, going back to the training piece, how would you recommend if, let's say I'm an up and coming injector and I'm looking for a training academy, and, maybe it's, obviously the Medical Aesthetic Arts Institute, but like in general, there are 16, we're just going to say there's like 1,600, right? Because I just decided to. So, right. But like, even I surveyed, like I have about 800 practice owners in our Facebook group for the Fierce Factor Society. And I asked them like, what are the best training academies? And like 4, just continually came up, right? Like some of the same and some others. What does somebody look for? Like, what are the key things? I know we talked about the things that you feel like sets you apart, but what would you say from the perspective of a new injector? Like, what are the things they should really be discerning about when they're deciding where to go to learn?
I think this is a very important question, because I have trained students that have been to other training programs where they've found somebody on social media, and they've taken a training with these people on social media, and they've left very disappointed. The goal is, I believe, my goal is that I'm always providing value. I never want a student to leave my training saying, oh, I did not get my money's worth, right? So first, I think you need to definitely do your homework, check a variety, look at the Google reviews. What are the students saying? I always give options. If someone's looking to my program, I can send you to any one of the students I've trained and let them tell you for themselves. Do they have credibility in the industry? Are they speaking and training for the pharmaceutical companies? How long have they been injecting? Where did they get trained? And then what's the follow through? So you get trained. Do you get follow through? Do they help you with a complication? Do they help you with questions after the training? Do you have any mentoring? Do you have support? And what if you didn't quite understand it all? Are you able to come back and take the class again? Are you able to come shadow, spend time with your instructor? Because I want my students to feel like they can ask me anything, come back if they didn't get clarification. If they want to see real life, come spend the day with me. because I've trained so many students, I only allow my students to shadow me. I don't have time to allow everyone, but I think you need to have ongoing support. So interview them, ask all the questions. What are you going to get for your value, for your money? And then am I going to feel ready? Am I going to feel confident that I can go off? And then do you offer job support? We've built relationship with Job Snob. A lot of our big, large med spas here in Utah hire our students. We've even had, the funniest thing is we have another training program that their instructor took our training, but she trains for another company and she sends them back to us for mentoring, for medical director. It's so funny, but they all just somehow find their way back. So, I would definitely interview, make sure that person's right for you. And I always tell somebody, look, don't take my class if you don't have a plan. Don't just spend the money.
Yeah.
Because I want them to make that money, have a return on their investment right away.
Yeah.
Don't want them to just go out there and flounder, because I teach from my perspective of where I used to be. So when I got trained, it was a 4-hour training. Someone flew from Florida, came in and trained the whole entire office, every position in the office, 4 hours. And then they handed me a manual. And it was 3 months before my first patient walks through the door. So I had to run to the back of the office and read the manual to get me through my treatment. And I think that's the kind of training I had in 2014. So I'm teaching from that perspective, as I never want my students to feel left alone. I don't want my students to have a bad experience and never want to pick up a syringe again. And I always tell them, look, give it 1 year, full time, go all in. And if after a year you realize this just isn't for me, well, you know what? That's okay. It's not for everybody.
Right.
Then you know what? You gave it your all and you can feel good about pivoting and going somewhere else.
Right.
Quitting, but it's time to pivot.
Yeah. I mean, a girl always has the prerogative to change her mind.
Yes.
This is what I say now. Who are some of the other, women? I know you're big on relationships, and I don't think it's by accident that you're winning big awards, that you're are voted by your peers and students. And I mean, essentially you're training your peers, right?
Yeah.
Who are some of the other women that you really respect in our industry?
Well, I've always, of course, admired Julie, right? Julie Bass Kaplan. She's kind of my inspiration behind the emergency kit, because she deals with so many complications. And I was just like, my students need something. So I've got to create something that's really easy to use right there and has everything in it. So I love Julie. And a lot of my colleagues that I've met on advisory boards, I mean, I just love that. I am relation-based 100%. And I do have a big love for Tiffany as well. Meeting her, my very first year is the first year Aesthetic Next had their conference. It was my all-time favorite. And one of my colleagues here locally invited me to go, loved it. I loved the intimacy of it. And I think that's where I met her the first time. And I'd met Justin before, but she and I just hit it off. And I just love how positive and uplifting she is. She's the kind of person that always reaches back and helps somebody else up. And so I really admire her. I admire her business savviness, and she's amazing. But there's so many women that I just am like, you go girl. They're just hustlers and I just love it. I love to learn from them. What I feel we all need to be mindful of is when another woman admires you, she doesn't mean she's threatened by you or she's jealous of you. She just loves that you've done what you've done. So let us give you kudos. It doesn't, I just feel like there's this blurred line of, when someone else in the industry gets recognized for their success, then it kind of does this weird energy thing. And I don't want any part in that. I'm about making my table as big as I can possibly get it to invite as many people to sit around it.
Well, look, let's be real. You're going to have supporters to a point, right? And there are women, I think, who have who see that they are capable of achieving, believe in their heart that they are capable of achieving what you have achieved, they're going to applaud for you. But the minute that you are faced with someone who sees that you have surpassed a barrier that they believe that they cannot, then it's the mirror, right? It's the insecurities that come up. It's a mental game. And that's where the personal development work comes in. That's where your business cannot outgrow you. You have to do that work. And that's really, I think, at the heart of what, the heartbeat of what you're doing, as a leader in our space. And, I appreciate that and applaud you for that.
Oh, well, thank you.
So just kind of in wrapping up, you've been around, you're around the block, right? So like we're talking 2015, you started your own clinic and really some industry, experience before then. And just things have changed so much. Like, for me, I came into the industry in 2010 and I'm like, whoa. And especially like now, I think just even faster and faster. What are your predictions for aesthetics over the next 5 to 10 years? And I know that's a really and I want that to be a big open question, because I'm just curious where, like, what you see as, your position in this marketplace and where you see us going.
Yeah. And that's such a good question, because as business owners, we always want to be thinking ahead, right? And know when it's time to pivot. But I truly believe with these memberships coming up, that's what the future is everybody's going to have a face membership, right? It's like the gym membership for their face. Everyone's going to be on some type of self-care membership that they make top priority, because we all know what it's like to be so busy and burn out that we can't even take care of ourselves. And I think that's going to change, because mental health, and that's so tightly linked with our physical appearance. And so I just see this industry getting bigger and bigger, more technologies coming, advancements, artificial intelligence. I don't see it slowing down, and it is such a fun industry. It's so fun to see all these young people coming in and crushing it. I just love it. I just went back to Dolce Vita symposium with my colleague Scott, and seeing all these young injectors. I'm like, girls, you go, like, you just put your head down and keep pushing, because you're doing great things and we need them. We need them to keep, pushing they're our next generation. They're our next leaders that will be speaking and teaching, and, and so it's having those high standards and pushing yourself for excellence. And yeah,
definitely. Yeah, I had a conversation with a client recently about, becoming the celebrity or being the woman who has developed 15 celebrities, right? And the difference of and this is a lot of the work we do, is like it takes practice, a mental practice, to get to the point where you can take your ego out and really see yourself as a different kind of person of impact, and that's through others, essentially. So with that, Yvonne, how can our listeners, the Fierce Factor listeners, learn more about you? How can they get registered or apply to come into your academy?
So we're on Instagram, Medical Aesthetic Art Institute. Our clinics are Aesthetico. And then I have a personal Instagram. You'll see me at the gym at 5 a.m. That's me time. I have to take care of myself. And that's just Yvonne Dellos. So Instagram is really where my team does a lot of it. So
yeah, awesome. I'll link those up too for everybody in the notes. So if you're scrolling on your phone, you can just click over. So any last words for the Fierce Factor listeners, or anything else that, you want to kind of leave with?
I love to mentor. So if anybody has questions, business, injecting, pick my brain. That's what it's for. Like, if I don't use it and let other people learn and grow from me, then I'm not doing my part, right? So DM me any questions you have. And yeah, I'd love to connect and build a relationship and watch you grow and succeed. So
Aw,
yeah,
that's so great. All right. Thanks so much, Yvonne. This has been such a pleasure. I
thank you.
appreciate you. All right. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.